Hi everyone, welcome back into the class, and we're going to continue on the studies here. We're taking inspiration from Franz Mortemann's 19th century Romantic Victorian floral painter. And I'm going to this morning, so we worked on the flowers here. I still feel this one could go a little lighter. So I came back in this morning and looked at it. It took most of yesterday afternoon off. My wife and I went for a drive. I went and took a bunch of reference photos for some new wildlife paintings, and so I came back here and was like all excited to paint this morning, get it started, get it finished up, work on the container, get the tablecloth here, and maybe a rose and stuff off to the side here. So we have a lot to get done, so let's get going on it, okay? So, but I may lighten that back up again. You never know. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my big 2-inch brush with some extender medium and put this back up over, even up over this flowers, my main flower units, because this will wake up the colors like they were wet, and it'll show me the colors, what they look like when, so, you know, look right out over here. When you get some of the stuff wet here, see how it changes your view of it. So I want to make sure that my eye is, you know, you're getting to the point where some of these areas are getting done. And as I'm going to add in more areas, I want to make sure that my eye is looking at the wet color or what it's going to look like when it's varnished. Years ago, I used to always do a technique where I would give some sealer, you know, a coat of sealer over the surface and protect it. And those of you that still like to paint that way, you can, okay? It works, it still works great. First, before I go into the container, I'm going to, I printed off over here, you can just barely see it right here, the actual pattern. I took a photo of my drawing before I did that so I can look, okay, I added leaves here and here and here, so I can paint out and restate this area in here. So I'm going to do that. Just going to take some burnt sienna, some blue, a little bit of red, violet, and green, nice dark colors. A little bit warm over there, so a little more burnt sienna, bit of extender to it. I do like to have touches of that, and I like it all mottled up, right? We like everything mottled up. So see how taking some of this light away right over here not only really helps that rose, but you know, just model this out. It really pushes that whole rose composition part over there forward. So we'll just, I'm using a 3/4 inch brush. I like to paint with that, and I like to give it some paint. You can see that greenish color in there, and I had a little bit more to the violet side in some of those cooler shadows. So let's get over there and add a few marks. Oh golly, that's pretty. Right through there, and that a little bit more violet. That's kind of nice. I like that little shine of a light coming through there, so maybe just a bit of the reflection of some of that coming through. Just model that up in there, and that's kind of nice. Breaks it all up, right? Yes. And let's add a touch more burnt sienna, a bit of the light with that, and that should take us over towards this. We're close. A little bit red. So what would you do to take that off? It's a little bit red. What's the complement of red? Green. A little bit of the green. Probably too much of the green, but a little bit of the green. See how that takes that right closer. And I want to be a little more careful. We'll maybe blur that line just a bit, but I want to fix some of this up because I'm going to put a rose back in here and stuff, and I want them, that's a little too overall smooth for me. I like what he does in there and having some of those colors. So, you know, as a matter of fact, let's just do some of that right now. Might as well get some of some more of our blue, burnt sienna here. These are all colors and you know, darker versions of it. That's going to be over here into our silver, right? So this will push some of this over, give us some nice scrubbing action of this. I like color. You know, it's like I showed you in the last couple videos. The moose, it started with that moose, the seascape, the other flowers. Get color flow, color soft edges, color flowing, and that is so neat and important in painting. So let's just make sure we're adding some of that. around, getting some of that nice movement to her. It's added a little bit over there. That's a little bit warm, a little bit brown. So let's just leave it light. We'll just glaze it here slightly cooler. So we'll see a bit of that light coming through there. Maybe a touch of white, a little bit more gray, a little cooler gray, not quite that warm. So we'll see the light coming through here, a little bit onto our background. I love this, adding slow additions of colors. It reminds me of the Dutch, the Flemish technique so much, where I just loved adding bits of color and layers of color, and it just made such pretty additions to your painting. Okay, let's wiped out some of the paint there, so I'll add a little bit more, some different tone. That works out real good. So now right in here, do you want to smooth that out? Well, you know, what I would like to do, I think more than anything else, is I'm going to express, before I do here, let's just go ahead and do this. Matter of fact, let me raise this up just a bit so you can see that a bit more. And we'll add a bit more of our blue or burnt sienna, some of this gray color. We'll take off some white over here, warm it with a little yellow, because I'm going to be painting into the light of the area here. And you know, I had this brownish color here, so now I want to add a little bit more of a different tone. And I love piling on paint with the knife. I'll manipulate it into place with my brush in just a moment, but you just can't beat the painting knife. And those of you that don't know the difference, this is a painting knife. It's a painting knife because it has this Z bend in it, which allows your hand to get there so you can use the flat of the blade. A palette knife is just flat from the handle all the way out. So these are called painting knives. Just a little bit of, you know, I call them, half the time I call them palette knives, painting knives, and knives, you know, whatever you want. I also love to use these. These are my big scrapers, and I would take big color like this and just scrape this onto the surface here, especially like this. And see, what I like is, you see all this modeling the color? That's interest, guys. That's interest through the painting. And I want to drag some of that all back through there. And I got a little bit left of the light, so let's add just a touch of it up here. Now let's warm that even a bit more white, a bit more yellow. Warm that right in here, which is going to be the area of our light source, coming in and striking this area, kind of right in line with that here, right in line with the highlight we're going to, and if I like it more over to the side, I'll push this highlight right over a bit more, but I kind of like it right in there. And I love to use the knife. I'm going to add some light right in here and just plow in some of this light right like that, and manipulate that around right in that area and leave that. I can take my big brush now, make sure I soften out some of that extender so it's not quite so wet, but you see I can come through here and I'll pull some of this up and pull some of this across, mostly across because this is a horizontal part of the painting, but mostly across there. Let's add a little extender and some of the dark in here and just soften that as it goes back here. Tap a little bit. That lifts up some of the other paint. You don't, and it will blend it if you're not too careful. I don't want to blend it. I just want the movement. Does that make sense? I want the movement in there. Let's take some of that back color and just, I know you can hardly see that over there, but it looks fantastic. Okay. It's just a little bit of light back here, guys. No biggie. Okay, so we'll just add a bit of that light over there. It's right here. See that? It's right there. I love this sliding easel. I made this sliding easel years ago, and It's all made out of oak, and it's big, and it can handle a painting up to 20 feet wide, but it's counterbalanced, so I can raise it and lower it, slide it side to side. Makes it so easy because as I'm getting older, my shoulders hurt after a while constantly reaching, so that helps. But enough. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more light. I love that look of that light coming through here. Because I want this light in there, because I want this to really appear light. We'll pull some of that through here. And this is what I really love about the painting, is I get these, when I use a larger, and sometimes it's really scary to use larger things, but I use a larger knife and I get those broken marks. I love those broken marks through. And add those little taps, the little, you know, I call them the little spots, the little shines. I love that. And here I'll just plow on some heavy color there, right into that area, so you really feel the light right in there. Now, let's rework that darker bottom, which was our blue, burnt sienna. And then we added violet and stuff to it to keep that kind of purpley color. It's a little darker, but we don't need to go quite that dark. So let's add just a bit of light. And that's a little too cool, so a little burnt sienna. That might be kind of pretty. Let's just grab that and grab some of that right along. See, that's what I love. See, I'm going to pick up, and let's try to do this as simplistic as possible for that edge. Now, that edge is that is still just a touch dark. So let's add a bit more white. And usually when I warm or lighten, I warm slightly. So I warm this. Yeah, that's a pretty good color for that. Right in there. That's pretty good. Let's add that. Try that right across there. That's pretty good. I love that scraping, because it adds this interest that you know, when I paint the plinths in the Dutch techniques, I would add little cracks into them and stuff like that, you know. I'm not going to do that in this one. I'm just going to put in the shadow and the light, but I add these little cracks that I love here. But I'm just going to break up here, and so it's not completely perfect. Like that little blue right there coming through. And some of that, and some broken color and stuff. That looks pretty good. Let's break that color just a little bit more here and there with some of this. And it goes through, that'll be the cloth coming up over the edge. Then take some of this color and push it right back into some of your cooler areas too. Right back there. So that creates a harmony of the color, right? We remember that. Dave's really big into the harmony of the color, right? So let's just drag over that a bit. Yeah. I just love these. This is the Warner. You can hardly tell it here. Maybe I can. I get these paint scrapers. This is a 2-inch, I believe. Let me put a little bit of the hand sanitizer on it, because that'll clean it up, hopefully here. Yeah. So rub that a bit here. This is, well, it took the name off too. Warner. It did that. They must put their name on with acrylic paint, because I just took it right off. It's the Warner NER. It's a paint scraper. I get it right on Amazon. You can get them anywhere. They're about $5-6. Really nice. I have different sizes of them. This is the 2-inch, and you see me use these in seascapes and stuff. I really love them. I love how they manipulate color, and I'm going to leave that texture that's right there. Some of the stuff that I want to eventually pull into the painting, but I love some of this cool back here, and I'm just going to add some of that right like that into that. It really, and this will be nice when I go to add that that rose back there. So I'm going to add a rose back there. Okay, now So that kind of sets up that area. And I'll refine it. I'll refine it a little bit more stuff here later on. Then I will, after I get this on, then I'm going to fix up that front edge because it's drooping just a little bit here. So, you know, I have to, one of the things is I'm off just a bit here. And you constantly check this stuff, guys. Constantly check to make sure that you're, you know, that you're drawing and everything, that you're preserving your drawing. And I'm off just a little, I see. And so I'll check. Let me just fix that well, so I don't forget about it. Nothing worse than hanging into the gallery something that's crooked. So my line, my table height is right there, and see, it's off. It's right there. So it's going to be right there. Glad I noticed that. So you can, usually I have right out here my little square. You see me to use that. Oh, there it is on the other side of the studio. That's being prepared. But usually I have that right around here, and I'll use that. But I'm just going to take up some warm color for the front edge, and I have to drop this line right down to about down in here. But I want to preserve that texture, so I'm going to use my knife, and see, I can draw with that knife right in there. Boy, that's a lot better. Let's put that edge on. But if you're painting Dutch and you're painting casual, you may blur this line a bit too. You know, blur the edge just a bit here, so it's not quite so perfect, so precise here. I do like that. That's better. That's a lot better. Looks a lot better. If you see it, yeah, it's a good idea to fix it while you have it in front of you. Let me take a little bit of this and fix this here, this edge. Smooth it out or take away some of the interest as it's going off the canvas there. Keep that interest right into here. Does that make sense? So let's just pull a little bit of that color. And if I push the knife flat, I will mix these, blend them, actually creating a softer look here. Just sliding the flat of the knife through there creates a little softer look. That's better. I like that. Let's put one more degree of light right in there. That's good, right in there, just to see that. Okay, now we can work on this guy. All right, let's go to, I'm going to paint it with my 3/4 inch brush here, okay? And I will start by, of course, it's wet from the extender still. I'm going to recoat some of the stuff I'm going to do here. I love the blues and greens and reds and into the silver colors, purples, purple colors. I'm just going to mix up a bunch of different colors here. I like to take those and warm those slightly in here to get some of that silver and that nice, I love burnt siennas in here. See, these all are going to be great colors to touch into as I paint. But really, we've got these blues and these kind of bluish greens, some of these colors. Metals reflect a lot of the other colors around them. And I'm not going to pay extreme, I want this modeled a bit, extremely too much close to what I did before, other than I'm just going to re-moisten in. Let's put some of that warmth right back down here again. Right, and just tap, try not to do big, huge marks. Does that make sense? Let's go back into some of our softer color. Here's some of our bluer color. Okay, and bounce your brush around so that you don't paint it smooth. Let's go into blue and the this brown madder. Such a pretty dark, beautiful color. That's going to give a lot of interest to this part of the composition. Let's add just a touch of a little bit of light down here is the reflected light of the table. And when you're painting reflected light, like it should actually, this is the roundest part of the container here. And so reflected light won't go any higher than that rounded part because it can't hit it. And so it's going to be down here. And it's really kind of the colors of the table here. So I want to touch more yellow into that. And so we'll add just a bit of that. And it is going to appear, basically what this is in a metal, is this is the color of the table reflecting into the metal. So we'll add a little bit of that right out over here. Okay, and I'll take it out because that's too high, but I'll fix all that later. I start to just plow on some of the colors, if that makes sense. And let's just get, we're going to have light this time right in here. Let's take some of our dark and just run this. See, try not to touch it too many times. That's what makes a beautiful metal, is you let the colors bounce through the metal. So don't touch them too many times here. And just model with color, color, color. Let's add a little bit of warmth right there and take just a mark. Okay? Now, after you've applied some of this, let's put a little bit lighter blue here, and then I'll show you. Let's get a little bit of the blue. Blue-green is that what he shows as the light reflection into this metal. He shows it right up here, which is kind of a real pretty color in there. This is blue and green, right? Little bits of it here, right? And we'll grab a little more warmth right in there. A little difference between the two. Just model these colors. This is what makes metals pretty. But as long as you keep it kind of blue and some of that blue and the white and those colors, it's going to look very silver here. The bluish of the pewter and silver here. And so let's build a little more light right in there, okay? Some more, and maybe a touch of the, just a tiny touch of the violet and blue in here. Yeah, that's a pretty color. Let's pop some of that in. See, I'm marking color. I'm just putting the colors in here. Now, see what you can do, and this is, I don't call it the cheater way, but it certainly isn't the alla prima way, is when you get done with some of that, is you can take your soft brush and just pull through in slightly curved motion here. And it'll drag all of that together, see? And, you know, you don't want to do it too many times because you'll blend it too much. And it'll all become one color because you want to leave some of that coloring in there. Does that make sense? Yeah, so just, I mean, it's fun to do it. Just don't do it too much. Let's get some light out here and get a bit of our light back out here because we want some of that light. Now, that's a little too light. It's like I say, though, I like to paint too light, too dark, and I'll come back and add to it. So let's add a little bit of the dark into that here. Okay, there we go. And you'll see that other color. Get a fresh paper towel. And let's pull some of that color right around here. That's really good. The color is really wet, and what I need to do is just keep building on this because I want the color to slowly get thicker and thicker in these areas. So we got this nice dark right in here. I want to expand on that a bit. Move some of this through. As you move, you see you can still paint with the same thing, but light pressure and just don't use the same mark. Does that make sense? So I'm may pull down a little bit and pull across, and that just gives a different look to it. So, just keeps the light bouncing. That's what I'm trying to do, is keep the light bouncing. Let's get a little bit more yellow into some of this. Some yellow, some burnt sienna, a little bit of green. The warms right up here, a little bit of blue, just a bit. Let's get the warms right in here, which will help our metal. I'll reset that light. So now I'll get that warm fronts in, right? And over here, we'll go more violets, blues and violets. Let's get some of that in. Restate some of that blue and violets right up by that reflected light. Restate some of this through that side. building color. This is all I'm doing right now is I'm building this mosaic. I love that term by Sandin. Building this mosaic of tone. Now he has, again, that he has on his, which I really like, that more bluish color, which means if I put a lot of this blue right in here, which I do like, is I should carry it up into my flowers. Does that make sense? Now, he doesn't necessarily do that. He'll leave those spots of color. I like to carry the color, and I do like that blue. Well, what does that mean? That means I'll come up into my composition here, you know, in areas, and I'll add some of that blue through the composition, through the background, through some of the leaves, sometimes right onto the roses, which is what I'll do. But that just, see how that carries that blue up and through there. And it is a nice addition. Something to remember. Let's get just a little brighter blue, just for giggles. There, okay. Phthalo blue and white. And then we'll go back to our neutral grays. Let's neutralize it over here a bit more. And the red and the blue is really a pretty gray as well. Neutralize our gray here, okay, and push some of that in here. Take out some of this, bounce it around, right? So you just see some of those pretty colors working there, right? Bounce this color through some of those areas. That's pretty. Maybe even a little bit of the blue shows up in here. The color bounces around. That's what makes it pretty. There we go. And your brushwork, what we call the calligraphy, is so important to the believability and stuff of your metal. So let me step back just a bit here, and so you can see what that metal is looking like into the composition. And so now what we can do is come in and we can start adding some of our lights. Now, see, a lot of times too, I like this, and I'm going to show you, is I like to, once I get paint on, I like to start to paint the metals, especially into the centers here, with my knife, because I get this shimmering of color, if that makes sense. I like the shimmering of color that I can get. Let's add a bit of that blue right up in here, just to say I did it. You can break across, add some of that light. I love, let's get this blue and light, bit of yellow into that. Don't mix it up real well here, okay? We'll pick it up with our knife, and we're going to come right in here and just deposit that around. That's where that light was, and it's too much, and I know it's too much, but I know how to correct that. I'm worried most about just getting some color on. That's what I'm looking for. And you know, in his, he's got these little spots and stuff, right? Now, I go back, you can use a 3/4, you can use another, any brush you want. I'm going to put a medium tone in here, and I'm going to paint into this to break the edge. So I'll take some of this off. Let's go back in just a touch more here, so you guys can see this, but you get the idea of how this is fitting here. But I'm going to use my brush and lift into this and break the edges that I want. This is a sloping area this way, so I could pull this brush through and slope some of this light, if that makes sense. Now this is going to take me 3-4 times to paint this light the way I want to have it. And I'll take some of this out with some blues, some other colors. That needs to be a bit more blue. Let's get a bit of the blue playing up against that light, if that makes sense. Here, there. But this is the first part of a very complicated little light we're going to put in, okay? So it's going to take us a few seconds to get this correct. Here, work these tones and lights and get this around. And this is all really wet. So, and sometimes sometimes I'll take all this, and I love my thumb to come in here and, incorporate without taking it out. I don't want to take it out, but incorporate some of those colors. Let's get just a bit of this, and I love that slight curvature he puts in here, following the contour of the outside here. So we'll work that in. But other smaller little tones, right in there, you might have a bit of a yellow that just casts a little bit, a bit of our pink or greens that's going to come from, a little bit of the green that's going to come from some of the leaves and stuff that we're going to add, if that makes sense, right? I love my dark blue and brown matter here through this, and I'm just looking for some of that casual nature. Let's get this nice and dark right here before the ellipse of the reflected light. Pull some of that around, let some of that light dance, and work some of the colors here. And if you notice, I'm doing smaller marks now and just looking at the color play of this metal here, right? And then I'll start to lighten up. So I'm going to grab some of this yellow right in here to warm that just a bit. And I might even go to a smaller brush. I don't always like to do that because it causes me to take, this is my number 10, but it causes me to take more marks. So I want to use it flat and simple here. And I want to kind of emulate, I like kind of his rough emulation here of the lights, of the shines. And so I want to emulate that a bit. Let's just break this line. That's the first low light. We have a highlight to put on that too. And I'll take out just a bit of that here. There we go. Just put in a bit of that shine. A little bit of my blue coming up against it, the cool coming up against the warm light. Let's get a little blue, a little green. Here, slightly darker here. He put some of that right up in here, which I like. And, that really makes me feel like I want some blues, those blues back up in there when I see that, right? So let's just take a little bit of that out there. Okay. This is the low light. This is not my highlight. This is the low light that sets the position or sets the area for the shine. That's what I want to have. And he puts on little shine marks, extra little marks here, or shines in the metal. Like again, we can tap some of that around there. Little reflections of that light, little edges of it, little taps of texture are so great. Now, I gave a little idea of a foot right here. The other one is covered up, but I might want to just rebuild this foot a bit. Right here, a little light. Simple. Keep it just simple. A little shadow, light and shadow here. And a little shadow, blue shadow up underneath it here. A little texture sitting right there of that foot. The idea of it. Touch of a shine there. We'll cover up the other one, but we'll cover up the other one with some of that fabric. But let's put that down. Maybe the idea, because we have down here, this is going to be, let's take some of our darker, a little bit of red and blue here. This would be the cast shadow up underneath our container. Now, this is all going to be covered here by this cloth, but we'll just go ahead and give the idea of it. Light side up over here will clean up some of this edging, because this is up forward in our painting, so we'll clean that edge just a bit. Remember, it's all about edges, right? Soft edges, receding edges. We'll take that, and let's just take just a touch of that light, the reflected light. Let's just give it. He doesn't show that much over there. I'm going to show a bit more. And I'm going to drop this below that light part right there. That's good. That's looking better. And so I'm going to restate some more darks here before I go, because remember what I feel about all of painting. It's painting with the darks as opposed to the lights. So I want some of this blue, a little brown matter, a little violet. Add some extender. I'm going to just pull down through some of this. So I like to pull down through. If I'm going to soften some of this stuff, I like to pull down through with some of the darks of the metal. This will give a little bit of pink. Let's put just a light color of a pink, soft, reflecting right down in here, coming off of those roses, right? Maybe some, we started a feeling of some right here. So I put that on, and this is how I do it. I put that on, and then I'll paint through it with some of my darks, which actually paint the main shape of everything I do. So those darks, let's put just a touch of green in that. Change the tone just a bit. There we go. Change that tone just a bit, right? That's going pretty well. Nice pewtery color here. Tap that through. Now I've got lots of colors, small, and it's hard for you to see all of it, but small little touches of color. Here's the light coming up. Small little touches of color here now in this container. That's really painting it pretty. Let's take a bit of that pink. Where is it coming from? I don't know. It's bouncing, light bouncing around, right? It's light bouncing around. Let's make it a, and a good impressionist painter would come in and just go bang like that and just leave that. And I love that kind of hit. I love those kind of hits. That's the impressionist part of me that just loves to say that, There's Dustin Van Wychel, and he, a premier master wildlife painter. Awesome. He just started coming out with some educational videos, and one of them, it's fantastic, and I'm going to buy his set just to watch him paint. But he says his style, he said, rather than calling himself an impressionist, he calls himself a painterly realist, which I really like. He says he likes it to look real, but painterly. He wants it to be a painting, which is exactly what I like to do. So that was such a perfect description. I'm going to paint some of that back out with my darks, tap that through right there like that, so I get that shine of the metals, right? That little bit of shine of the metals there. That looks good. So I put up a little bit more light. I love, and he says too that you paint with a brush that is slightly larger than what you're comfortable with. And I believe that. I believe that as well. So there's a little bit larger. Let's take some of that down, just a touch here with some of our other tones here. See, just break it a bit. This is what creates the shines that are very, what do I say, they're unusual shapes and stuff, which is what you get in the metals. So we'll take some out, put some in there like that. Let's draw the low light shine back down here a little bit more. here. Let's just put a little bit of that here. There we go. And let's increase this light here. There we go. Just break those edges a bit. That's probably too much right there. But the more lights you put on this, the more shiny or shimmery you make your metal. Does that make sense? Okay. So I can blur that ever so slightly. Blur it. There. And I like to really kind of manipulate that shine so it's where I want it. And now I'm going to go pure white. Pure white. And put that final shine in that I want to see. Don't breathe. So all of a sudden I stop talking because it's hard and I don't want to. I'm getting into the final shine here. I don't want to mess it up. So we'll add just a bit of the shine. Nice big shiny area there of that metal. Now I may end up taking some of that down, but I do like that. Let's put some of the shiny, he put a lot of shiny reds and stuff over here. Bouncing back from here. So let's add a bit of that in. And some of our darker colors here through. You can even take them right up to take out some of that other shine. See, that's what makes it pretty. See, just take this out. So if you think, oh, maybe I got too much here. That dark, you know, if you think, oh, I keep adding white, but it's not getting shinier, then do this. That what you're missing is your real dark. That's right up by the shine. What is it that makes a light color look lighter without having to make it lighter? The darker color, right? The darker color. Let's get just a bit more of this blue right in here. I love that. That blue is really giving a nice look to all of that metal there. Now, this might be a little bit too much. I may want to smooth that out just a touch. Let's take a softer low light here and maybe just walk that up a bit. A little bit of light here. Right like that. That's kind of pretty. So you see the light that's lining up with that right there. Very simplistic on the foot here. You know, a little bit coming around. Very simplistic on that foot. Kind of like that. There. And yeah, a little bit of the contact shadow there on that foot. Let's just kind of take out some of that right up around that foot. There. Right up like that. That'll work. Maybe a final little shine right up here by that particular part of the foot. That looks pretty good there. Let's step back so you can get a better feel for that. Step that camera back a little bit. Come back into here, down a bit, so you can get a feel for that. Now, you can see that blue, now that I've added some of that blue back up into here, that really makes it pretty. Now, what he doesn't do it at all, but what I like to do, and this is up to you whether you do it or not, I'm going to take a little bit of the blue, softer blue, and I'm going to add that here and there to a few of my back turned edges of my flowers and stuff, since I use so much of it into the metals. See what it does, that little sparks of blue. Now, when did I start doing this? From wildlife. I started this when I started painting wildlife, and I looked at Jason Rich and all those other wonderful wildlife Western painters, actually, and they were doing this stuff, and I was just fascinated by the blue that they would add to white horses and stuff like that. And I loved the look that it carried through the composition, anchoring all of those stuff together. It would just look wonderful. So you can soften some of this coloring out, but leave some, you know, a good impressionist would leave just heavy-duty marks. But that's up to you. I'm going to put a little darker reddish color right in there. That's reflecting some of that. And I'm going to paint some green leaves here over some of that, so that'll help. But yeah, that's very, very different. Before I go too much farther, I'm going to take this soft red and some white, and let's go up even lighter, maybe a little open medium. This is just going to be a dry, a smooth acrylic, but a dry acrylic up onto the, you know, the dry area here, and I'm going to lighten up some of that front light edge of this rose. And I might end up doing it even again. I've lightened it up several times, and then I painted the shadow back again. But each time, you know, I tell you guys all the time, I tend to work the main flowers several times, especially if I want to get that texture and interest in there, several times during the painting. And I might even take like soft little blues and put little hits into some of that area back up in there. Soft little blues. A soft little blue mark would look pretty back up in there. Just a little mark. Doesn't take very much. A little mark of it to softly say you did it. You know, that just a bit of that carries that color up through the composition and cools it. Because when we started out, remember I said I was going to start out very warm, and then what I did is I got really warm, and he kept overall his painting cooler, richer into the colors of the, you know, what we find in this particular part of the colors. He carried that all the way back through there. And I wanted it a little bit warmer yet, so I did. And now I'm going to add just touches of the cool. Yeah, just, I'm going to put my main body, burnt sienna and blue. I'm going to come back here, because I feel just right up by the top here, it's just a little busy. So I'm burnt sienna and blue, a little bit of green. This is the main body color of the metal. And I'm going to slowly work it in, not take out everything I do, but just work that color in here across a bit, just to put some of that into that metal. See, breathe, and let's put some of that in here, and so it just, and that calms down. If you feel your metal gets a little busy, this will calm it down and smooth it down. And that looks pretty good. Let's put in a smaller little shine down that edge of that color. Just a little more white. There. Smaller shine of that color down. Pretty color little thing. Maybe a touch too much blue. You can just tap out some of it here. Don't take it all out. Just kind of tap through it. Soften it a bit. Let's just pull some across, because that just gives a different look to it. You get some of those nice metals in there. That's pretty. Let's correct this back edge. It's all fading away, and then we'll move over into the, it's fading away over here. Let's bring this, I want it to fade away a bit. Don't want it to be perfect, but just a little more shadow here. That's good. There we go. Just tap some of that through. There we go. That's good. Okay. So I got a good feeling of the light and shadow. Let's go back up just a touch here, and let's start putting some of the colors here onto our fabric. We'll work that fabric, and then I'll work a little bit of leaves. I'll start the fabric and, ooh, touched into some of that red violet there. That's all right. We'll just go ahead and put it on. Little extender over the surface, something to work back into. I can soften a bit of that. I love the blur soft edges, and look at that. That's just running right down into my table. You darn thing, you. Stay up there. So we'll work some of this right in here. Let's cool off. We'll just put on some colors here to start it out with. Let's cool off the front a bit of our blue. That puts in the shadow a bit more onto the front of this fabric. Something to work into. I always like that. And follow that edge of that table through there. So that's cooler there. And let's go back. Let me work this with my 1-inch or brush. I like that one. My 1-inch brush. And the larger brush will go faster too. So let's take a little burnt sienna, a little light, nice warm, little bit of blue and green, just to, that's a little too much blue and green, but a little more burnt sienna, just to cool down that gray a bit. That's a pretty gray. We're going to put multiple colors on here and a lot of paint. I want a lot of paint coming up onto the surface now because I want to get this fabric to flow and move, and that's going to happen with a lot of paint. Okay, and I'll work this paint around, maybe push that edge there. Okay, that's good. We'll just take some of this down. Here we'll put the idea of these folds that will start and just pull them down. There, there'll be another one here. Right in here, we'll blur some of this here. I like the big brush and very casual as I work these kinds of things. Let's get a little lighter. When you get lighter, you get a little warmer. So I'm going to add some white and I'm going to add some yellow. Now the other thing that you can do that's really, really pretty, because our thing is we want to create this light moving across this surface. And boy, let me tell you, there's nothing better than the knife to start doing some of this. The knife really works well, you know, for pushing movement, because and you don't see the brush marks in it, if that makes sense, right? So we'll work this here, and I might bring this up over a ridge right here. That might look nice. Bring a ridge right here up over that, and then let this other fall down to a shadow back here. A little burnt sienna and blue right in here. Big brush. Let's work some shadows here. Work this right into a shadow right back here, that this fabric is falling away back here. A little bit of this. I like the casual looks of that. And we'll push. Now to keep this going flat, we'll push this shadow out a little further right here. Boom. And that will keep this looking flat, like it's setting up along the table here, like that. Okay, you need those horizontal linear planes, and then we need to sink that back in with that shadow here from the cast shadow here, right up over onto the onto the fabric here. So we'll see a little bit of the fabric edge there, but we'll push that cast shadow, so this is going to disappear back there. It will eventually. Hang with me for just a minute. We'll get that. We'll push that shadow in here. Some of that back up here. There we go. Right up to the real dark part, right up in here. Right up underneath that fabric. There we go. And you see I get some of those carry brush marks through. And when I'm really casual painting, I leave them. I love them. Here I'll fix them up a bit, but I do like leaving those brush marks because it makes a more casual edge, if that makes sense. Let's take some of this back like this. See, this is what I'm talking about, the casual edge. And I like that, just because that's what makes it look like the folds in the fabrics, if that makes sense. Okay, let's get a little warmer, a little lighter, a little more white right down here, and we'll drop this edge down, that little corner. Let's pull some of this. This is going to be a little hump in the fabric right there. So we'll need some shadow. So what I'll do is, so you got the light edge and stuff, so right in through here, past the apex, will be the shadow that's coming from the fabric, from that little bump, if that makes sense, okay? So you'll have, we can push this shadow a little bit more here, but this would be the shadow in the fabric, and this shadow would come right here onto this fold and down this side here. Work that back in there, right? Would come down here up over this edge here. There we go. And I'm working a super big brush. I could actually be a little easier to paint if I went down to my 3/4 here. And so I'll plan the next one here. This will be the next ridge here. And I'll pull this right down, break it a bit, the shadow here. So then we'll paint the shadow, a little burnt sienna, blue, some pretty nice little grayed shadows here. It's kind of like painting the, you know, the clothing and stuff on the westerns. I did that a lot with you guys to, you know, to give the ideas or show you how I got to bring this tip down here by the, right in line, that break, right in line with the edge of the table there. That's what that has to happen. Here, right by the edge of the table. There, down like that, right? Casual here. Let's work some of these, but you put light and shadow. It's light and shadow here, right? Light and shadow. And I'm going to, yeah, so work this there. So I get that light. Let's work a bit of this shadow. See this shadow tone. So this is the shadow edge. So shadow tones, but you want to model it. See how I'm modeling some of this, like the movement? So that's what's going to give it its look of fabric. Does that make sense? And so like I may pull down, and you may pick up a little bit of that coming down here, like that. And it's really a lot of paint right now, which makes it even more difficult to paint. I'm going to put a little more light into this and then let that shadow just kind of take over. Swirl and flow some of these strokes here. Okay? Swirl and flow these strokes. And just give the impression of stuff like here, just kind of falls over the edge here, and doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. That's what I love about it, you know. So now let's we'll add a little bit more light modeled in here, the edge. We'll work the edge of this fabric here a little bit more, kind of like what I have in the drawing, where I put that little lace part in there. Okay. We'll work the up and down of the lace. And now, what we're going to want to do, because we're going to paint this a couple times, but what we're going to want to do is take some of our darks here and make sure that we see that edge into our fabric. So we'll just a bit of that edge, where that is. Even though it's fabric, you got to be able to see where that break line is. Does that make sense? So you see that. And then as you get up to these lights, then the flow of these lights, as this starts to dry up, that's when it gets even easier and prettier to paint the fabric. I'll take the model knife and just flow the fabric colors here like this up over it, and so you get the flowing of light, but I need this to tack up just a bit. So while that's happening, one of the things that I will do is I will take and find a small little brush This will work, like a little number 4. And I'm going to take burnt sienna and blue, nice dark table color. And basically all I'm going to do is come in and paint in the idea. So basically you're going to have this right in this area here. I have that one little round. I'm not a crocheter, so I don't know what this is called. Some of my friends could tell me. Here. But I'm going to start painting in the shapes that you see here. Here's the center. There. Okay. You could also use your knife to make them very casual. I don't need them to be perfect, but we're going to have a set of them along this whole front here. And so what happens, you know, as I paint this. Now, for example, I just got those a little big back there. So I'll just take some light and I'll paint down and maybe take it into 1 or 2 of them, and I'll let the colors kind of mix a bit. Does that make sense? I mean, it's very casual here. So, you know, I might draw that light line that you see here. Now we're going to paint this more suggestive than you would a lot of other things. So this is going to be very, very suggestive. But I'll take my blue and my burnt sienna, and this is very difficult when it's wet, and this is really wet here. So, you know, it's something you might want to wait until it's dry to do some of this detail work on this lace. But this is basically what I'm going to do, and I'll tap in and I'll paint out and around, and I'll create the little pattern of the lace here. But I'm going to do it very suggestive. I'm not going to be absolutely perfect with it. So I'm going to do this, and this is exactly what I'm going to do, coming back and forth and around. I will probably do a good 30 minutes on it, so you don't need to see all of this. I'm going to add that. And while I'm doing that, this is going to be able to dry up a little bit, and I'll be able to come back and show you some of the work. So I'm just going to do this little detail work for the next 30 minutes, adding some light and some shadow and some lines and some detail work. And then I'll come back and we'll paint some leaves and add some of the final things into the roses, okay? Okay, I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, I went ahead and added a little bit more here. You've seen me do this before. What it did was, you know, I put that wet extender over it, and then I came back here with a real low light and some open medium and my knife, and I just drug that over, and then I lightened it. And when I lighten it, I add a little yellow oxide, lighten it and drug it over, and finally with a little more white, put in the edges. Now once I got the edges in here, I then take my larger brush with a little shadow and back paint up to the edges like this. You can see actually my marks, pulling out and pulling down the strokes. Actually painting, doing most of the shaping like I do with most things, guys, with the shadow, okay? And so I put some shadow in here, put some light on, and then put some more shadow in there. That's how I did it. I just came back also, added a little more to some of the outside roses, which I wanted, just to get them more casual. Now, let's go in. Let's work some leaves before we put some final colors on some of this stuff, okay? So the leaves he keeps pretty simplistic, and I like to do it too. The leaves are basically the foundation for the roses, so we'll keep them pretty simplistic. Let's just mix up. I mean, some of my real fun leaves are warm tones, which is burnt sienna and the pine green here. Those are nice warm tone leaves. Sometimes I'll take that out to the side here, add a little yellow and a little bit of white. When I add white to lighten stuff up, I like to add a little bit of yellow. There's some cooler tone leaves that you can spread and put out to some of the areas, and that is going to be your green and your blue here. That's cool. tone it down with a little red, but you could also use a little red violet, which helps this stay even more cool. But if you add a little bit of red, you can tone it and warm it slightly, because that's a pretty cold color. So we can get some variations into our leaves, and we keep them pretty simplistic. And so I'm going to start out mostly with a medium, and I'm just going to model all these colors kind of together. They're just an oval shape, and that's what I want to look for, is an oval shape here. And I want, you know, I'll drag through like this and pull off some of that to give them lost edges, lost and found edges. I can come back with a light shadow. You know, Mortimer's, he does, I've done a lot of his paintings, recreated a lot of his painting for some of my online classes, and we were very, very particular about his leaves and the study in those online classes. And they're very simple. Very simple. You know, a lot of artists would now do a two-tone leaf. In other words, they would put on a tone and maybe make a shadow tone and divide, you know, part of the leaf up with a shadow tone. He doesn't even do that a lot of the times. So, you know, that's up to you how much, you know, you're going to add. So, but here, what I'll do is a little bit of a light idea coming down here of a vein, you know, of a vein line, or excuse me, a stem line here, and we'll put on the light colored leaf, which will be coming more into the light right here. So I might do two-tone leaves. Mostly these are going to be just ovals, simple ovals, maybe a little more light, a little more yellow if I add a little more light to it, and then just simple, you know, maybe half or partial of the leaf with a light stroke. That's a little too light, so I'll work back and forth here with these colors, playing the light where it's going to be in the composition, if that makes sense. Okay, but the majority of what he does in his particular painting is cool leaves here, and but I'm going to put on a few warms and cools here as I see, and simple, and most of it I'll do like this, stroke, and just leave the actual painting of the leaf very, very simple here. Imagine the vein line, do half in light, half in shadow, and that looks good. Now, I think I want to oval those up just a bit more, and maybe like on this one, increase its size. They all feel exactly the same, which is, that's my darn left brain coming through again. So something I know to watch for. So I'll change that as I watch. Something over the years I know, you know, as I'm painting along, especially as I'm teaching to you, my left brain will take over and paint it as I know to see it, which is very uniform. And I don't always like that. So after I get done with it, I'll come back and just fix them up, change their sizes a little bit, add a few more colors, especially right up there into the center of the composition. You can make that real cool kind of tealy colored leaf here, which is really pretty to have some of this real cool light as well in here. Let's put a cool light right out in here across the front, a little bit larger one too. And let's keep that one dark, and let's put another one in. So we'll keep this one a little darker. There it is. And let's come next to that. We'll go light here for a second, and I'll build some cool light. Let's go a larger one here that will cover up here a bit. Even that other leaf I just put on here. Let's cover that up. And let's put that's a little quick, a cool light here. That's pretty. We'll grab just a bit more of that, a cooler light here. Up onto that, a little touch. And, you know, carry those colors through other parts, and maybe this has a little bit of the cool on it. Normally he doesn't do that too much, doesn't change it out. But I love that cool light because it picks up some of the blue that we've used here in our composition. Some real dark green leaves here. Just dark. You know, he paints just a lot of real light and dark. Sometimes he'll just come in and put a light edge. Sometimes he'll take just, I like to especially do this. He didn't do it too much, but we're using him for inspiration. So, but I like to use a little chisel with a light and give the idea of a little vein line. I think vein lines, the thing I like about vein lines, keep them very simple, but they add a sense of direction through to your painting as well. So let's go real dark right out here. Maybe a few more just ideas, maybe a touch of warmth with that. Vary the colors. That's my main thing for you as you're painting this. They're in light and shadow. Vary the colors as you go through here. Adding some of these, and some of them are just, he just does areas of color. So, you know, some of these you might just come in here and paint the shape a bit. Let's put a little light into that. Little light traveling through here. They're just simplistic here. Yeah. Leaves are the, I heard one artist one time many years ago, and she said, leaves are the playgrounds for the flowers. And so they're not a major part of the painting. They set the foundation for the painting, but they are there to support the movement and the interest of the flowers. So don't work too much on them. I mean, you've heard me say that several times in all of the paintings that I do. So it's not a new concept. Now his is more dark, and that's okay. I'm not going to go that dark. I'm going to even lighten some of these edges here just a touch more, like they've hit the light, because I can. And I love this painting, and so I'm going to take just a little bit of time with it and add some other little touches, and see, I'll take out some of that painting back too. One of my favorite techniques is to add that light little hit, and let's add it more out towards the tip there on this one. And then I take the dark, like I always say, I do a lot of my painting with the dark, but I'll back paint with the dark here and take out what I don't need. So see, I could take a little dark, run it right along that vein line, take out some of the side of that just a bit. So I love the shape with the dark. And what's really good about the dark is right here. See, I can push it up the dark. I can push that leaf right there back up underneath, so it's real pretty. Now he does do, let's set up here, some real pretty ones right up here, that, the three that are going to come right up here. And oh, I love that sienna, that color of that sienna and yellow. Add a little open medium to that so it stays open. The sienna, the yellow, and burnt sienna yellow and pine green on that. Such a pretty, nice, warm color up there. Let's add a mark or two of that into our other leaves here. Pretty color. That one came out real pretty. Change it just ever so slightly here. And let's get this other side out. Nice oval, nice size oval. And see, some of his, he almost lets them like disappear. So let's get a touch of light. Give the idea of the stem through there. That's nice. And maybe that vein line will come up through here. See, I'll put the idea of the vein line, and then, like him, I could come back. Here's a little bit of that. Let's go slightly lighter, cool color here. let's use that kind of like he did. Pull back to the vein line, taking some of that out, putting some of that cool color up there. He has it up by the tip of this one. It's heading out of the light into the shadow. And so you get these various tones on there. Those are quite pretty. Sometimes, like on this one, you put up a little bit of light up at the tip, but you can come back. Let's use a little bit of blue and violet with some of this and really add some marks of contrast, darks in there. That's quite nice. He put a real light, and just his working of his colors was just magical. So he just put a light little, let's put that, get that better. Tap it on your palette a little bit if it's too mottled. See, I want to keep the leaves soft, right? So if the color's too mottled, it'll give too much interest to that leaf. So, you know, because the streaky interest, so it'll give too much. So just tap it on my palette a little bit. If I put the mark on there and I see it's going to be too much interest, I'll take it off, take a bit of it off. Just lighten and warm that just a touch more. And add that from the vein line out here. There we go. I love some of those two-tone leaves. He doesn't do a lot of them, just a few of them, because it's all about the roses, right? It's all about the roses. And some Diarylide, some yellow, and some little bit different green. Let's get some of that working right down in here. Pretty greens. A little lighter color, maybe even a little coolness here. Let's get a bit darker. Shadow that back. Pretty tones. Here we go. Pretty tones. And soft. I'm going to add a little extender because this now needs to just be soft greenish shapes coming out here. Out to the outside, this is just soft green shapes. And if I do anything, I tend to darken those shapes a bit. So we'll add some shadows here. Simple. Everything's simple now. A little bit of acrylics here. Just the idea. And yeah, so you keep working around. Let's put some of this. So here in the Kid is Good, we have the dark against the light, so we'll have some darker. That's not quite dark. Green, blue, a little bit of the red violet. Even this brown matter is really pretty. Nice dark. Look how dark it makes those leaves there. And that can give you some real dark. And model brush, you know, you got all these greens here, but model it towards the dark colors here. And yeah, and then you can tap a little bit of light as you get up to the front, but you can see in his, he gets very, very dark up there, see? And he had a lot bigger ones than I'm going to draw here. Just the shape, because these are out of the light and uninteresting. So it's just the shape of the leaves. The interesting ones are all down in here. Question is, yeah, let's see, let me finish this up here before I go, so I don't lose where I'm at. So just even some nice burnt sienna is pretty into those. You know, just grab some, loosen up your composition, right? Colorful, you loosen it up. So add a little yellow over here. Oh, pretty, a little bit warmer. Ones here. There we go. And some lights, maybe a cooler light here. Just add some colors, right? And violet, blue, and that brown matter is so pretty. It's a real dark here, even on these leaves, a dark side, shadow side. Working that around here a little bit. Some of that shadow, let's put in the idea of a green leaf. Does it stop at that flower there? Probably. We'll put the green in there, and maybe a little bit lighter mark. Maybe we'll leave it right up over that one, and then right underneath that one, so you see some of it there. Maybe just a touch of the light onto that. That's looking pretty good. He left some of those out there, and you know, he does these stems that just end, and I don't always like that. I mean, I find it distracting. You can do them if you want. I don't like just stems. I like always ending at the pretty leaves, so I will come up over here and just add a few marks for some pretty leaves here. Take that out. And overall, I probably could lighten some of those leaves a little bit more. Let me warm and lighten. Get a little more powerful green into that. Warm, lighten, and green. So a little more pine green in the white will get it more green. Here. Let me just, because they dry down a touch, so here we'll just, and leaves make good bridges for the flowers. So they should be a couple values, and I used to teach this all the time, and I don't as much as I should. The leaf, you know, if it's all about the flowers, the leaf, the value of it, you take it up close to the flower, but not as light as the flower. So when you look at this, see, I'm going to take this leaf up a little lighter, even a little brighter. Let's go Hansa Yellow and some pine green, and I'll show you what I mean. I'll go up in value, probably up around a 7 or an 8, within a couple here of that, and see the general interest. That adds to this leaf here, and I'll let the shadow take over on the other side. But see, that forms a light between the two. It's going to dry down just a bit, but it does what I call a bridge. See, without that, your eye bounces between the roses. Okay? Your eye bounces, your eye moves between the roses. But if I start to lighten, and I used to teach this in composition, and I do in composition, if I start to lighten, let's lighten and brighten like this little front edge of this leaf a bit more. Your eye will travel from the rose through the leaf to the next rose, and it does what we call bridge. It bridges the light. So let's just lighten this just a bit. Maybe this one just a bit. Okay, just some light to it. And here, I'll lighten up this front one right here, and then we'll let it come back here. We'll let it go back down the leaves there till they soften out, till they fall towards the background in value, right? There we go. So those others, so I may, right in here, see that leaf is a nice foundation, but if I want to lift the leaf up closer to these two roses, I'll put a little more color right on, not into that rose, but right on that edge. And as I lighten that edge, pine green, Hansa Yellow, a little more Hansa Yellow, and some white. Nice, bright, light green. Right? And it doesn't take much. Don't put it everywhere. But that just brings that to life, see? So now I get more volume through my bouquet as well, see? Let's get a little more yellow. And so there's a rule in color. And those of you that haven't studied color theory, you really should at some point. I teach an online color theory class. There's rules here, what is called the law of disproportionate color. As a color gets lighter and brighter, the area which it occupies in your composition gets smaller. So you're only using small touches here. That's what keeps the interest to your composition. Those are rules, and there's all kinds of rules. So here we have some pretty nice looks developing here. And I can take a bit of shadow and shadow back a touch of these and just work some of the greens around. So here comes a light little stem line here, there, you know, just little bits. Marks of color, loosen them up a bit here. Here we go. Maybe even a little more light here, pulled in there, and just an idea of a vein line. Choom. That little idea helps so much. Little idea of a vein line. I like to do it there. It just helps the movement of that leaf. There. There we go. There we go. Just like that. Whew. Okay. So now I like everything that's going on there. I could warm and bring up, or take that light back here a little bit, increasing the light in the front edge of the composition. It dried down just a touch. Overall, though, I like the composition. We'll go back just a little bit more here and move that over just a bit so you can see a touch more of the composition. It's a big painting, and you know, you can't quite see it. No, you can't even quite see it there. You can see all the moose, but you can't quite see it there. But I might, you know, I'll let this dry down here, and I might, you know, add some more colors here and there, like onto the leaves. Now, you see, we put some of that blue earlier onto the, you know, that we used in the container. Let's take this little bright blue. Let's add this, maybe that's a little too bright. So let's tone it down. Tiny touch of red, tiny. See how it grays it down? Right, tiny touch. We'll gray that down. A little more blue, so we're not quite so light. And let's just add a few sparks of this through the painting here. That works better. Keeps them, all the leaves also, from being green. Take some of these other colors and tones and matches it up and through, which is nice. And you know, how, if you want to do this, this is fun. I love this part of it. I'll touch it into some of the flowers, you know, here and there onto the flowers. Flowers can carry slightly lighter bits of the color, but the more toned version here, maybe even a touch more blue, save for back areas of the paintings, you know, just that kind of stuff. I just love that. Now, before I actually decide on this, let's take a little bit of our two reds. We said we were going to add right out here. Let's add a larger rose right in here. Boom, right there. And let's add its stem right back here, right? Got a few minutes left on this video, so we'll just go ahead and do that here. So we're going to do that rose. It's going to sit on the ground so everything gets flattened out a little bit. So Let's put the center on and flatten it out a bit here. When they sit down on the ground, they flatten out slightly. So there's going to be that. Let's grab some of our mid-tone, those nice pinks. And this is sitting just off the light, so a little bit warmer. We'll do the front bowl, pull down, leave your shadow. But we see the front. We'll do this more as a closed up one here. Here. Okay. Let's add a bit for the reaching petals, the petals coming out from the bowl here. That'll be kind of pretty. Keep them very loose. This side will get a bit lighter because it's heading to the light, right? Always paint with the idea of your light source, right? So that'll be a little bit lighter there. Let's get our Diarylide. Find a kind of a clean spot. Diarylide and our Quinacridone Violet. I love that into these roses. So we'll get a little warmth into that. And this is the time I really like painting them. When I paint fast like this. And, you know, all I'm thinking about is the center, the bowl, and where the light is hitting on it. That's all I'm thinking about. And then preserving some of the colors that I want to see. I want these colors to travel down there. So I've got to get a little more quinacridone and red. Got to get some of that red up in here. Here. Right? And not quinacridone, I mean Diarylide. Diarylide Yellow. Up in there. That's so pretty. Keeps it from being too pink. Gets a little bit of that warm orange in there. And let's just warm all of this up. Let's pull out some of this nice warmth here. And I love to blur. That's what I call blur it. Blur it out, which takes away. Use my finger. You could use your brush, but I use my finger. If you're using oils, don't touch your paint. But I'll use my brush here. And build this up, following the light. Build the front. Let's get a little red, a little Diarylide, a little bit of our quinacridone here. Restate. And see, I'll wipe that extra off. I love to paint and just drag my brush through into the shapes of the roses. That keeps it very, very casual, right? And let's maybe just hit the light here, like that. Now, some of the, Mortemans and stuff, sometimes when he would paint like a bottom rose like this, he would use almost a completely different type of technique so that it stood out slightly different. But I'll keep this very similar here. But I want to keep that softer over here. I want to blur some of this back and keep the light so we know where the light is. And then I'm going to add some of this light back in through here to the rose. You know, the other thing we could do is take some of this pretty color and add a few little marks as little turned petals here. That's pretty, and we could darken that down, a little bit of our brown matter, and add a few of them back here, which would be pretty. You know, that's a good old couchoir thing. Remember that? Those of us that, if you've painted along the couchoir painting style before, couchoir love to add these broken little petals and stuff back here. Of course, we have to add the shadows to them and stuff. We will. Quick. There. Let's reshape our rose. I always shape it up with my shadows, right? You always know that. So let's reshape, maybe open it up just a bit more. Leave these flat here. Reshape some of that rose. Blur some of this, soften it a bit, just so it stays soft. Build up a bit more light. Here, that's kind of pretty idea here. That rose, maybe a bit of the inside petals pulling down, real simple. Now, what makes it, what's really important is it to shadow. So we'll take a blue and I really enjoyed the blue and the brown madder, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, and we'll need a bit of a cast shadow and contact shadow here. So the cast shadow will stick out a bit. We'll just blur that off. The contact shadow would come right up under here, and then we'll just drag that out a bit. So right up into the very front of the rose, you're going to have a very thin line of shadow. That's the contact shadow. And then drug out a bit is the cast shadow. Right out there. And let me add a bit of extender. So I know I'm painting this really fast, but I'm running out of time on my video. And I don't want to make another video for you guys just to finish the small stuff, even though it would be fun, but we only got a few minutes left. So I'll just show you. So we're going to have a cast shadow and then right around to a contact shadow on those little guys. Right, the cast shadow right around to the contact shadow. Right. And those will come everywhere, even back here. As they get further back, they're going to blend into some of the other shadows. Let's take a little bit of our burnt sienna in the blue. There we go. Just blur them out here. I love the impressionism of it, the painterly bit of the paint here. Yeah. Now, on this rose that's here, as I've set that up pretty, it's a little stiff. It's lost some of its bowl shadow, which I really like. Remember, I always tell you, preserve the bowl in all of your painting. So I've lost a little bit of the bowl, so I'll bring the bowl back in here. And that helps the rose immensely. We'll drag some light right down to help shape that a bit. Don't ever lose the bowl. Let's bring this petal in right on the light. We'll shape up our rose a bit more. And it's a little flat right across here, so I might even break this into 2 petals here. And here, pull this back. Makes it kind of pretty. Gives a little different shape to it. Just so it doesn't appear, you know, this one is up by a center of interest. You don't want it to be just round. Does that make sense? You want it to have some interest. That's what I love about these. They're not round. So the petals are a little bit different shaped, if that makes sense. So we can even pull like one right across here to bring that right in there. A little more power to this one. Maybe a little bit more of a light here. Pull that one across as well. And let's drop in some of that shadow. Remember, keep that bowl shadow. Let's just drop that right in there. Boom. A little bit more. Pretty and fun painting. This has been a fun painting for me. Here we go. Let's take a touch more dark right up here and push this dark. Even that higher contrast red violet's nice. And let's get a little bit of red. Soften that just a bit. And then back to the light. Trying to be quick, but we still got to make it pretty. There we go. That's kind of nice. That's let's deepen the bull shadow on this other side. Some of my violets and stuff. Maybe a touch of red, even a little bit of that quinacridone here. And deepen that bull shadow right down here. Let that shadow just, that's the whole shadow side of the rose as it's falling down into the table there. There we go. That is fun. It was fun painting with you guys on this one. A little bit longer, a little more going on. I like that. A little different rose. You can put a couple leaves out there too, you know, out there on that side. You can make the rose have even a touch more interest there by taking some of our nice blue and burnt sienna, a little bit more burnt sienna, a little bit more, and some extender, and pushing in even some more shadow back here. Push that shadow back in, back behind a little bit of it. Leave it, you know, like I do. I mark it up a bit, right? So I'll take that. We'll add some light, little yellow, little burnt sienna, medium light color here. Work that in. Drag that through a bit, through the painting, not just in one area. Drag it through the painting a bit, right? Then when we go a little lighter, we add a little yellow. Let's go a little lighter, add a little yellow. Go up a bit. Add some of that. Right through there. And let's go a little bit more. Maybe even a touch of blue like I have in the original one here. That's a pretty color. But that little bit of shadow there really helps that rose sink in on that side over there. And it helps your light come forward. And you may, you know, like I would probably here, add, you know, I like these little hits on these roses where the light, where you're picking up right with the light. So maybe right out here, you start to hit just a little more light here. You know, these, let's bring this one in here like this, just a bit more. So it, yeah, that's pretty. So it hits that light. And there's enough room there if we want to maybe give a second one right there. That makes kind of a pretty rose laying down there on the ground. Let's increase that light. And then I think I'm going to stop. You know, you'd stop and take a look at it. Don't, you know, when you do that, don't repaint absolutely everything. There you go. It's kind of a pretty painting. I like that one. There's a few things that I would, you know, when you start, after you're all done, you go get yourself a nice drink, cup of coffee, whatever, and then you start to look to see if you're carrying your colors. So, you know, and this is the last thing that I'll tell you. I promise, because we've done a lot on here and a lot for you to remember. But I would increase maybe a touch of my pink right down through here. Reflect my pink down through. That pink picking up right in there. Maybe a touch lighter with the pink. Almost like a little bit of a reflected light highlight into it that's coming off of that rose. Some of this pink would look magnificent out in here. Out through some of the pink, some of the yellow, right into the light colors that we established out here. Grab a little open medium, grab some of the other colors, even some of the other colors here, a little yellow, the other colors that we used in the composition. Good way, you know, fun thing, good way to use up some of the colors in your composition, your painting. Now you can save your colors, but I love to do this, start moving color around. This is where I think the painting becomes really pretty, is when I start to move some of those colors around. And I'll do the pure alla prima kind of stuff that I love to do when I paint alla prima with you guys. You know, granted, we're not alla prima here because I've worked on this a couple days, but it gives you some of that feeling, though, coming back and working the painting with some of these colors. It gives you back some of that feeling that you may have lost, that alla prima feeling. That's really nice. Here, let's just tap a little bit of that around. A little open medium causes your colors to slide a little bit more, and yeah, it just makes it pretty, huh? Here we go, a little more light. There it is. A little texture. Boom. If I put on too much pink, I'll sink it with just a little bit of light. There, like that. That's really kind of pretty. Whew, little blue. Your leaves can have a little toned pink on them. That would be pretty. I'm going to leave that's a little weak up at the very top, a little weak into the background, but I'm going to leave it because it's a good look. And overall, I love the painting. It's it's not as much detail as he would put to the outside, but I love the eye coming in here. That's what I'm enjoying the most. I'm bringing your eye in and up and through the painting here, and that's what I start to look at, guys. And you know, that's what I'm trying to do. And so I'll expand my whites and stuff and my lights wherever I need to drive your eye through where I want you to go into the painting here. Like that. Yeah, that's nice. And so you do light one side, shadow the other. Light and shadow. Yeah, that works. That's how you do it. Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And it was a big, long painting. I had a lot of fun with you guys teaching you some of this. Ooh, I probably want to light that. Sometimes you're just never done. I'm going to do it because I just saw that and I was like, ooh, I should probably lighten that. This edge right here, after I put that light through there, oh, it has just a bit of green in my brush. That's nice. That's really neat. I should put some of that everywhere. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. And, you know, when you're painting a big painting like this, there's frustration and stuff too along the way. But, hey, guys, you know, there's nothing like accomplishing a big painting. I have one of my wildlife students here a couple weeks ago finished a big painting. He got all done. He said, this is the biggest painting I've ever done. And I said, it's such a feeling of accomplishment. Then he went out and sold it. Now he's doing another one that's even bigger. And that's part of the confidence builder. That's part of your journey as an artist. And, you know, in doing big paintings like this and doing roses like this, you know. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Please click subscribe. Click that little bell if you want to see, you know, when I release paintings. I have, like I said, I have a mountain lion and a wolf and another floral and a beach scene and a landscape. I have a mountain. It's time for me to paint another mountain. But I have all those coming. And so if you want to get notified when I am doing another one, make sure that you click that little bell and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And we really appreciate the ones of you that become a membership of the channel. It's just a few dollars, but that helps us keep all of these videos free. So if you can, support us through the membership. And those of you that are in the membership, I'll put a final photo of everything here, and I'll put the drawing up, and I'll get that up at the same time I launch this, so you guys can begin your paintings, okay? All right, and if you have questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys when we paint another one. I might do a quick landscape and then right into maybe the wolf. The wolf, or I have an elk too, but I did an elk one. Let me know. Hit the comments. Let me know what you want to see next, okay? All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for supporting our channel. We appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.